Let's go. Look, today I have a very special episode of the podcast. If this is your first episode, I do a daily podcast and I try to do 3 things with it every single day, which is help you master your energy, be yourself, and simply enjoy your life. Motivation to go chase your dream life and also get clear on what that dream life is to you. And that's why today is a synchronicity. We have on the author, Sky Nelson Isaacs, my man, Mr. SNI. He is the author of Living in Flow, The Science of Synchronicity and How Your Choices Shape Your World. I read his book almost a year ago now, maybe over a year ago, and it really impacted my life. I did podcasts on it, so if you're a longtime listener, you remember that, and this is a really cool experience because I finally got him on, and we had a great conversation. He shared some personal stories. One thing I loved is that he doesn't even like to use the words, I'm putting words in his mouth, you'll hear what he says, but he doesn't use the words positive and negative. And if you listen to this podcast, just this past week, I was thinking about how the universe is hostile or friendly. Einstein's quote, but he was saying it's neither. It's just responsive to you. And that's how you get into the flow state. Understanding how to be your authentic self. And you question, what am I doing to cause the situation? How am I responding? How is the universe responding to me? And he gives great stories about that in his own personal life. And one of the most mind-blowing parts of this is that he's proving it through science. He has his master's degree in physics from the San Francisco State University. He's been an educator in different fields. He's a musician. And that's what his book, Living in Flow, is about. It's about how do you get into that flow state where you're living in a state of awe and wonder, and how you do that by becoming your authentic self. You get clear on who you are. And not only does it great for your own life, but it elevates everyone in the entire world. Because if everybody does that, we all are inspired and we all produce the best things we can only do. And it was just a great conversation. I'm super grateful to be able to talk to him. And I look forward to having him back on as we both grow. And he's got a new book coming out. So stick around to the end. We talk about that new book and his view on space and time itself. And it was a brand new concept I never heard of, or I never even thought of the way he put it. And it was so interesting. So I really hope that this episode helps you do those 3 things: master your energy, be yourself, and enjoy, because it really is the essence of what this is about. And couldn't be more of a synchronistic moment to talk to him at this time. And I just really look forward to your feedback, sharing that energy. And I really hope to bring you more content just like this, more authors, trainers, all walks of life. I want to bring all this type of information to you, and I'm excited to be able to do that and be in a position to bring you that. So with that being said, I really hope you enjoy. Totally. So I be living every moment. Oh my God, I be conscious of it often, like my brain a synagogue. I be flowing more than Moses. I might put that in my blog. If you know me or you don't, spreading love like it's my job. Hello, how you doing? Good. How you feel today? Okay. The sun is shining bright and I'm in love. What can I say? My skin is saying thank you. Getting tan, I'm feeling great. Every day that I'm alive is a day I celebrate. Let's get in that bump the shit while I'm whipping. Stay present. I'm gifted. This is my first author on the podcast, so it's really cool. I'll tell you a little bit about my podcast real quick, so you just have a quick feel. So I started as a dunker, training to jump higher. It was a dream of mine. And then through that process, I realized how many mental blocks I had. And actually, a synchronicity happened when I started reading my first book. A quick story was that I started reading Think and Grow Rich. It was my very first book I picked up. I was only in 2018. And I stopped halfway through, and then I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and a guy named Rob Dyrdek, who I'm a really big fan of, he mentioned to his cousin to read that same book, Think and Grow Rich, and his cousin said, "Oh, I stopped at the halfway point." And I was like, that's just like me. And then Rob's like, "Oh, you got to finish the second half." So I was like, oh, wow, that's got to be some kind of sign right there. I finished the second half, and that sent me on my sort of spiritual journey into mindfulness, meditation, and led me to your book. And it's just been really awesome. So it's really cool. It's kind of coming full circle now.
That's great. Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences in my life where pieces of information like that have come at the right time. And a lot of what I wrote the book Living in Flow about is how to distinguish between moments when you're just getting random information and you should or shouldn't pay attention to it. And, you know, opening a book and finding some meaningful piece of information at that page or that kind of experience. There's a lot of folks want to call out confirmation bias. Whatever you read, you make it meaningful, and you assign meaning to it because you read it, and instead of it happens to be the thing that's most meaningful to you, and somehow you synchronistically arrived at it. And I do think that confirmation bias is a big, factor in these things. But I've found through my experiences that we do need a better explanation than just our mind, making meaning out of things. That there are situations that I've had that, and actually a lot of not really intense, but pretty interesting small experiences of coincidence and connection that have been very impactful in my life path. That I think we need a better explanation for how does that information show up when it does.
That's why I loved your book too, because I was actually in a place of like, I remember talking to my friend, I'm sure if I bring this up, I was like, I don't even know what book I need right now, but the last book I read was really impactful for my life. I'm like, I wish one would kind of fall into my hands like that. I was like, and it was the first time, your book, this is actually a pretty interesting story, I'm glad I remembered to say it, is that it was the only book I've ever walked through the bookstore and just picked up. Most of the time it's like word of mouth. Someone gives me a recommendation. I heard it on a podcast, but yours I never heard anything about. And this leads me to one of my first questions, which is I picked it up and it was an amazing cover. And I felt it. It was almost like a soft cover. Did you have that behind your design choice at all, or that just happened to be? Because I remember feeling it. I'm like, this feels good in my hands. And I was looking up marketing at that time. And I was like, oh, this might be a marketing play with like, it actually feels good to hold, because people choose prints based on what people want to see. So I was wondering if that was just curious, random curiosity.
Well, North Atlantic Books has done a great job publishing the book. And they designed a nice book. They helped me do great editing. And yes, the cover is fantastic. I was blown away and so thrilled when they came up with that the look of it, the design, and the feel of it. I was very stoked when it,
it's soft, kind of right? Matte, it's not just me.
It's kind of a matte feeling.
Okay.
It like sticks to your hands a little bit. It feels soft like a piece of paper does.
Right.
And so yeah, it's got a really nice.
It was cool.
And if you look at the preprints of the book, they're glossy and very, very standard. So the final version of the book was really nice, and they've done a great job of getting the book out there too. So I'm really grateful for them.
That's really awesome. I've recommended it so much. I've actually did a podcast on my own podcast like almost over a year ago, because when I was reading it, the chapters were so impactful, and that's kind of what I want my podcast to be, is a place where people, when they tune in, they raise their awareness, because it's had such an impact on my life. Nice. Just like that book going forward is like, go ahead.
Let me tell you a story about this.
Sure, please.
About the cover. So
yes, please.
I play music as well. I've got an album actually that just is coming out right now called Stand For Me. And
nice.
Last year I was playing a gig down south of where I am, about an hour south of where I am.
Where are you, by the way?
I'm in the El Cerrito, Berkeley area in the East Bay, San Francisco area.
Okay, cool.
So I was down in San Jose playing a gig, and the book had come out recently, and in the gig I just took a moment to announce that the book existed, and I sort of wasn't sure if I wanted to promote it in that moment, and it was definitely fine. But I also was playing music; it wasn't an author kind of thing. So, but I was trying to build up a confidence to talk about what I'm doing and share about the book so people knew about it. So I did. I announced that I had this book, and I told them about it briefly and to the audience. And afterwards, this guy comes up to my table where I'm selling books and CDs, and he says, are you Sky Nelson Isaacs who wrote Living in Flow? Like, he was trying to make sure he had the right person. He's like, I designed the cover of your book.
Whoa.
And I never would have met him because he worked through the publisher, right? So I had never met him. So he and I actually connected synchronistically, and I got the chance to thank him for doing such a great job.
Okay, so that is a fantastic story. And now I'm thinking, did you stop in that moment and be like, what is the meaning of this, or anything like that? Anything that it led to? So
much of my own bottom line experience has been that the purpose of synchronicity is to make a great life. It's just happening because it's wonderful. And in that moment, I didn't look for like, I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to like get something from him. It was like, this is life smiling at me and saying, isn't life great? Yeah. And so much of my time, I admit to spending, in angst and worry about the future. And that's all fine. That's part of the human life experience, at least for me. But to be willing to just welcome in goodness like that for the moment without anything attached to it, or like a future outcome attached to it or something. Just a
Right.
heartwarming experience of connection there.
I love that. And so that leads me to something even deeper. So you let me know if we want to get to help me turn back around. But I don't know if have you ever read the book Godel, Escher, and Bach?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I read it or just know about it. It's been a little
It's the
while.
one. It's like the artist, music, and
Yeah.
math are all at the core.
Yeah, the way the mind, optimal mind,
Something.
creativity.
Yes, I just started it. It's super difficult, but
Yeah.
it led me to the question that Einstein, the quote my friend pointed at, is the universe friendly or hostile?
Mm-hmm.
And in my own experience with these synchronicities, there's such an anomaly, like the ones that have happened in my life, and just the fact that we exist. It feels like a gratitude overwhelms me, and it also feels like that's kind of the essence of why there is existence. But I kind of wanted your take, and is that go hand in hand with those synchronistic moments? It's kind of like an insight of like, okay, this is a moment to remind me. It's just to be grateful of this experience.
Yeah. The words that come to mind a lot for me are awe and wonder. And Jason Silva does a great podcast, Shots of Awe.
I love him.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it
He's a
yet.
big
Dang, I need to
inspiration.
hear that.
And wonder and awe are a feeling I get when I'm doing the research I do on science and synchronicity
Wow, okay.
and all the related stuff. Like my best moments are when I'm in the flow because I'm learning something I've never understood before, and it's all coming clear for me, and I'm alone by myself in my room with space and time around me, and it's a really an awe feeling. Like, this is amazing, and I lose track of time, and I lose track of my worries about what's going to happen the next day, and so that's one experience of flow that I have, and an awe and a sense of wonder are really tied to that.
Okay, so now that leads me to more. So that's awesome. So I love in your book when you talk about authenticity. I think because that's been a big play in my life too. Is like one of the biggest spiritual awakenings I've had was when I stopped caring what other people thought, and I realized how much I used to care about what people thought of my path and what I'm doing. So would you say that a great way to find a job or a career that fills you with that awe and wonder is to kind of chase it? Like, think of those moments that fill you with wonder, and that's kind of your path?
Yeah, I think that one of the things I've struggled with a lot is having, a few different possibilities. I've been interested in computers, I've been interested in music, I've been interested in science, become an author. And, when I get advice from people, there's usually some assessment from folks about what's more likely to pan out or what's more likely to bring an income and planning accordingly. But what I think the experience of synchronicity has taught me is to have some faith that whatever it is that I invest in will pay off in some way. And you can't foresee it. You can't say, by pursuing X, I'm going to then be able to get a job doing Y, and then that's going to bring in Z amount of dollars. And by pursuing this other thing, I'm not going to be able to get that, because by pursuing the other thing,
it's another tree.
It's another tree, and there are these branches with apples on them that you can't foresee, like an opportunity to get money doing something you never even realized could be possible doing that. So
I love that.
So for me, it's really whatever it is you commit to. You can have faith in this process that it will bring you where you want to get to, and the checklist of is this particular job going to bring me this particular amount of money to get me this particular kind of house? Like, all of that can happen lots of different ways.
So I really love that. And I wrote down a question while you were saying that, because I'm kind of like that right now. That's why I asked the question. Is I love doing this podcast. I actually produce a podcast called Books to Business that I might ask you to be on as well. But I also love music myself. I love rapping. I'm actually teaching myself to sing, following a course. I love making videos and YouTube videos. And I love the dunking, the training. So I think and then I also feel like the need to write a book.
And your dunking videos are incredible, man. They inspire me.
Thanks so much. It's so cool. It's so cool that you watch. That's really, really cool.
I'm always watching them going, is this real? I can't. It just doesn't look real.
So that the dunking is actually what's so great about it, is that because I pushed myself through that journey and achieved something I once thought was just impossible, it's opened this world up of what else is possible. Hence why I try to sing and write a book. And now I feel like I can do all those things. But like, for example, my question to you was, was it when you wrote the book, did you feel like you were straying away, or did it feel right? Or did it feel you with like, because I thought when I think of a book and the accomplishment of it, I'm very satisfied. I'm like, that's something that's a significant part of my life that I would love to get done. But then I'm like, is it the right time? And where is that? But I loved your answer, because it almost is like, you don't have to worry too much about the time. Just kind of keep working on things.
Yeah.
And enjoy.
Well, I'm working on a new book now, and I will say very interestingly to your question that I gave them the proposal last April because I wanted to get on it after the release of Living in Flow. And then for various reasons, it got put on hold. And then in September or so, they wrote me back and said, do you want to finish up that proposal for us? We're interested. And then in December, I had submitted the proposal, and actually been offered, I think, the contract at that point. And but I had a conversation with somebody who I kind of looked up to, and was feeling insecure about how to really have an impact in the next year or two. And this person gave me advice and said something that almost really threw me off, which was like, well, you're not really going to make an impact just by writing. And I thought, like, that really triggered an insecurity in me. Like, well, what I'm doing isn't enough. I have to like find some other means of, getting myself, engaged and making a difference. And I was able to like let that go and realize that, the truth is I'm going to really, really enjoy writing this book. Like, this is what I want to do. And I was able to touch into get rid of all the layers of should or outcomes or whatever. And what did I want to do? I wanted to spend the next 4 or 5 months writing this book that was on my mind. And whether or not it was going to make a difference or not, it became less important. And so that became a guiding light for me. And now I look back and I think, God, if I had decided not to pursue the book when I had it in front of me, like an opportunity to do so, I would have been really, really sad right now.
Right.
So there's this practice for me of looking into the future and trying to understand how I'm going to feel based on a choice that I'm making in the moment. And that sort of cuts through some of the layers of conversation in my head about, checklists about should or shouldn't.
I really like that. I actually did that this morning, and at least like thinking about just a visualization of things I want to achieve. And I'm the same way. As a lot of times when I think about what do I want to achieve and what the life I will have, and like I've already accomplished these things, it changes how I feel in the moment. And I've noticed that's a lot of times when I want to write music and things like that, because I feel so free and open.
And on a daily basis, it can be overwhelming to like dive into a project and feel like I'm not going to finish anytime soon. Well, it's hard to even get started. But when I look back every Friday at the week, if I've spent my week kind of working on stuff, I look back at the end of the week, I'm like, wow, I'm actually farther than I was, significantly farther than I was. And I feel good about that. But in the moment, it feels like impossible to really ever do enough to make progress.
That's great. And speaking of that, like tactic you use to like kind of think about the future and look back on yourself, do you do any like specific visualization type of techniques or manifestation or meditation, any type of those practices?
Well, there's one practice I do in my course. I teach a course called the Living in Flow course, and it's
I haven't yet to attend, but I've seen them.
It's a video series, and we do have an online gathering as well to support each other. But it's basically available to people at their own pace. And one of the exercises is a simple meditation where a person just reflects over the past couple hours, like that day. And just by really just sitting quietly without any thoughts around and remembering what has happened, I call it a remembrance exercise, because you're honoring your memories. And a lot of times what happens is things happen to us and they just pass us by and we forget about them.
Right.
So this could be a comment that somebody said to you in the kitchen in passing. Hey, do you want to go to this concert next week? Or it could be a comment from your kid or your parent about like, I really want to go to this museum sometime. Or it could be a comment from someone at work saying, have you tried this solution to something? But these things might have passed you by because you have, you're familiar with the Lorax process from the book. Listen to life, open your mind, reflect, in circumstance, release, and then act from there. And don't give up. So because we're not open-minded to things in the moment, we often forget or don't even notice them, and then they slip our mind. So by remembering and just meditating on what are all the things that have happened to me today? If you do that with enough spaciousness for 60 or 90 seconds even, you'll start to remember a conversation you had, or a funny email you got, strange email you got, or anything that's a little bit out of the ordinary, or that made you think for a moment. And each of those things is an opportunity to follow up, or an opportunity to think about, is there something I can create out of that? Can I follow up with this person and just share some love with my friend who I know you mentioned they were having a hard time, and I forgot that they were having a hard time because it just kind of passed. But now I can go back and I can create something by following up with them and sending them a nice note saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. And then, so by noticing little things like that, we can see opportunities to create more meaning in our lives, or more purpose. And you can extend that from just today to then yesterday and this whole past week. What are the circumstances that have happened this week that stand out for you when you give it a little time to reflect? And you can even do it more broadly for the past year. Like, what are a few things that have stood out over the past year that I've sort of have happened, but they kind of went into the background and I forgot about them.
Right.
So,
that's really awesome.
Like, for instance, the conversation, the story I said about that conversation with the person about my book, I had forgotten that I had that conversation about my book. But it's actually really useful now that I'm really deep into the writing of the book and I'm committed to that path, to remember, oh, I had this conversation back in December where I almost didn't write the book, and I almost was turned away from this path. And to remember that is really powerful, because it gives me this empowerment to see that I made this choice. And I'm glad about that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think of that, the tree of branches so many times, of like every little decision I make. I was just talking about it on my morning podcast, which is like, it's always changing. Like you never, like, if you don't make the decision, it's just the same as if you like take the decision, even though it seems like such a small step. And I'm like, I never want to go the other way. I always want to keep shifting my branches in the way that I want to go. So it's a very strange thing, but I really subscribe to it and love it. I had a question here from a friend. Go ahead.
Honoring the memories. I think we don't honor our experiences and our memories as much as we could.
Have you read the Tools by any chance?
No.
It's the Tools. It was by Barry Michaels and Phil Stoltz. They're two like psychotherapists, and they talk about the grateful flow. It's very similar. It's like you think of 5 grateful things, then you feel it. But what they say that I really liked is that sense of gratitude is the highest organ of perception to like the universe.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I talk about gratitude in the book, Living in Flow.
Yeah.
There's a whole chapter on it, and it's just such a powerful thing. I think when we're able to feel gratitude, a lot of what gets in the way of flow is self-doubt, or self-awareness, or what's the word? Critique, or just to focus on the worries that I myself have about my future, or how is this going to impact me. And flow is about the sort of getting out of the what's in it for me mentality. And gratitude, gratitude forces me. I mean, not the word force isn't that great, because it implies like conflict in some way, but it draws me directly into or out of that self-focus. Right. And I become happy the minute I start being grateful, even if my reasons for being unhappy are still there. Yes, I know what you mean, for sure. So flow partly is about being able to, you're always going to have reasons to be unhappy. There's always going to be some evidence, some part of your life that's not working great. And there's always going to be parts of your life that are working well, that you can be excited about. And so one of the tools for getting back into flow is to use excitement. Excitement is a powerful feeling that's related to fear, but instead of being fearful about what we're afraid of or what we want to avoid, we can be excited about what we want to experience. Yep. And that's a really fairly easy change or shift to make. Okay. I have a question about adversity and getting into flow. I don't want to forget that, but right on that concept you're just saying, what's a great way for people that are listening to
understand that? Because for me, it's like, I feel like they have to see or an example in their life where they did that, where they somehow had that moment to switch of like, I'm afraid of this. Yes. But try to look at the other side of it. Cause it's like two sides of the same experience. But if they're able to feel it and see what comes up, it's hard to get someone to, that's what I love about your book, by the way, is like, it gave those probabilities in such a tangible way that it's almost like, try to explain that. I guess it's the tree of like, how do you try to convince someone that believing in it makes it happen?
Well, I think the real tool for me is not avoiding discomfort. One of the things that gets us out of flow is we don't want to have a certain feeling. We don't want to be ashamed or scared or grief or all those things. And so we avoid situations. But those are actually our triggers to recognize that we're right on the cusp of being able to change, being able to be different and have a better experience. So I'll tell a funny synchronicity story that somebody shared with me. They were shopping at a grocery store and they remembered, the highlight of their grocery trip was this muesli that they got, granola. It was like a high expensive granola that they were excited about. And so they were on their bike that day. So they're riding home on their bike with their little bag of groceries and they have to stop at the doctor's office. And they think to themselves, well, I'm only going to be here for 20 minutes. No one's going to steal the groceries, right? It's just a bag of granola. So I'll just leave it there. So she leaves her bag on her bike and goes into the doctor's office. When they come out, the groceries are stolen.
Ugh.
And she's like, this is the moment of choice where we face this gut-wrenching feeling of, disruption to our plans.
Right.
And so she's feeling maybe angry, maybe frustrated. And she notices actually that her sunglasses are missing too. And they're a nice pair of sunglasses. So she's pretty bummed. And she has a choice. She could just ride home and be disappointed and angry. Or she could, she decides to go back to the store. She's not that far from it and get some more granola. She goes back there and she walks in the store and they recognize her and she says, yeah, my granola was stolen, so I came to get some more. And my sunglasses were stolen too. And they look at the counter and they say, wait, are these your sunglasses? And she had left her sunglasses on the counter at the grocery store.
Uh-huh.
And she would not have gone back to find them if her granola hadn't been stolen.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Gotcha.
So she took from that, like, I got to be careful when I'm frustrated and disappointed, because if I go with that and I just choose to be frustrated and disappointed, I might be missing myself being redirected. She was much happier to get her sunglasses back.
Yes.
And lose the granola. But sometimes we have to go through these experiences that are scary and frustrating in order to get something bigger for ourselves.
So would you say like getting into the flow is this almost identical to a synchronicity? Is like a synchronicity is almost a signal that you're in flow, and flow helps you see synchronicities?
Yeah. And in that situation, gratitude is a great tool, because when we're frustrated or angry about something, we can get back into gratitude. Like, okay, I'm healthy. I have my wallet still. I can go buy some more granola, whatever the story is that sort of counteracts the, self-focused frustration. And that opens up, the ability to get into flow and just choose your actions differently, go back to the store, and it opens up the possibility of this synchronicity happening, which is positive, which wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
I just had one yesterday, and it's funny because that was very similar to that one. I was in my apartment. I just moved in. I think I dropped something and it broke, like a light bulb. I forget exactly, but I just remember like when I was cleaning it up, I found something else. And not that I just was cleaning it up, it was something like that, but it was just a very similar experience. But if you think like that, it's like, not only does the gratitude allow you to find the next experience that's positive from, but then you leave thinking like everything's positive, and it's, instead of being like a damper on your day, it's just a chain reaction of these positive events that happen.
Yeah. And if you're willing to feel difficult feelings, if you're not afraid of feeling disappointed or frustration and using those feelings to understand yourself better, then every experience is filled with feeling and filled with experience. And so nothing is lost. If you're not looking for every experience to be positive, then you're not going to be disappointed when a negative experience happens, because you're going to be able to feel it and be in awe.
Yeah.
When I'm at my best, I'm in awe, which means that I have a conversation with somebody that doesn't go very well, but I'm still in awe of the experience of, wow, that was a difficult conversation, rather than in like
Wow.
negativity, like, God, I hate that person or something like that.
So that leads me. That's a really great point, and that leads me to my other question of a friend asked me to ask you, which was, does it seem that some people, or is it universal, or what are your thoughts on needing adversity to get into that flow? Because I know you talk about but for example, like a sports person, sometimes they need to be down a certain amount of points to win. But do you need adversity, or you don't always need it, or just your thoughts?
I had a dream a little while ago where I sort of had this insight into my own process, and I was frustrated
Oh my
at the
God,
time.
that's really fascinating. Yeah.
And in the dream, I was with like some guide or some other entity, and I said, the truth is I need problems because they help me see where to push, and it's my pushing on life that creates things. The creative power that I have is to choose an action and go in that direction and maintain that path, and then be able to see how life helps, how synchronicity responds to me. Like you said,
Wow.
My response to Einstein with the universe is not friendly or unfriendly, it's responsive.
Right.
So
I remember that.
I
Yeah.
have to push in order to get a response and create something.
Yes.
And I'm not going to push unless I have a problem to push against.
That's actually really helps that question I was having in my own head, friendly or hostile, because I actually had forgot your book. I know I love that part of it being responsive. It's not positive or negative, and that also leads to, because when you think about just being positive always, some people can think of it as a little delusional. It's like you're just trying to find a positive, but like some things you need to accept as negative. But when you say it's responsive, that's a way better way of putting that. If you put out positive, you're going to get a positive response. It's not that you're just choosing to see a positive in a negative situation. There is something there, and it'll show you if you have faith that that positive will have a reaction to it.
Yeah, and I think I even leave behind the word positive and negative because it's not like they don't actually really have a lot of value to me. If I express myself authentically to someone in my life who I have trouble with, and is that positive or negative? I'm not sure, but it might lead to a conflict, but then that conflict might get resolved, and that leads to a greater opening for our relationship in the long term. And
Love that.
that's responsiveness. It's how, and it might lead to a greater opening because then a follow-up event happens where we're together and something silly happens and we laugh about it together.
Right.
And that's the synchronicity, right? This new opportunity to be together in a new way, and we take advantage of it, and our conflict from the past gets kind of healed. So I think when we start seeing life as really just being in a state of awe about the different feelings that are moving through us, then each of those feelings becomes an opportunity for growth and healing,
right,
and becoming more fully present and diving into our life.
I love that. So what I heard about the pushing, like you're pushing on life to get that response, and every time you push, it's when you able to do that. Would you agree that it's sort of a muscle, like that feeling of awe is a muscle, and you could look at it as every chance that you don't feel the awe is like a way to strengthen that muscle so you can be in that awe state?
Yeah, I think some of the tools for that are recognizing the negative thoughts. And here, like I said, negative, right? Like as if they're bad, but thoughts.
They're not helping you.
Thoughts that make you dwell on what's wrong with you or what you feel bad about. If I feel bad about something, I can sit there and dwell on how bad I feel and how that's gonna, I would probably just ruin my career forever and that kind of thing. Or I can go a level deeper and say, okay, I feel bad right now. Why do I feel bad? I feel bad because I'm scared of having ruined my career forever, or I'm scared of having ruined this relationship. Okay, so instead of just feeling bad and negative about myself, and then grumpy with other people, I can identify what it is that I'm feeling right now. What's motivating me to act this way, and it's some underlying fear. So the more we can get underneath what's going on, we can get to the core of what's driving us, and that allows, at least for me, to then notice synchronistic opportunities to address the fear.
Wow.
That's guiding me rather than being stuck in the reactionary mode.
So yeah. So more on that. I love that story in the book with the qualitative experience, the smelling of the popcorn and going to the show. Have
Right.
you had any more recent experiences like that of a synchronicity where you did that, or a new story that you have on the top of your head? That's another one, because I'm sure I've said this on this podcast before, but I would love to hear if you have any new ones.
Well, I had a story. I was at an event in San Francisco, and it got out at like 11 o'clock at night, and I like to take BART. And one of the reasons I love living more urban now than I used to is that I can take the rapid transit to get to the city really easily. And so I don't have a ride home. I got to take BART home. And one of the things I try and do is time it. Like I'm at a party and the BART trains only run every 30 minutes or so late at night. So I don't want to get to the station 5 minutes after the train and wait for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
But I left the party and I realized I hadn't checked the timing of it, and the train was leaving in like 2 minutes, and I was like 6 or 7 blocks away. And just like in the book, I thought it's impossible. Like there's just no reason to
Rush.
run right
Yeah,
now.
you got to rush, because then you got to shift it.
Yeah. So, but I did. I decided to shift it, and like I don't see a way for me to get there on time. But
Yeah.
my book says I should run. So
Yeah. That's great.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. I gotta live by what I wrote. And so I hustled myself down to the station, and I get there and I'm like 5 minutes late, and I get down to the platform and the train is sitting there.
Wow.
And I get on the
Waiting for
train
you.
and I'm like, what's going on? This is so weird. And then the announcement comes on the PA. We're delayed because there's road work on the tracks, and we're doing single tracking, which means one train can go through one tube and then the other train has to come through the other direction. So there's these delays. And about a minute after I got on the train, we left.
Oh my God. So real quick what would you say? So for people listening, the qualitative experience is sometimes you have this experience you want, but you don't always get it in the way you thought you would.
Yeah. And you're, first of all, you're anticipating it. You're not like imagining or intending it as much as you're what you really believe about what's going to happen to you, like what you anticipate. My relationship's going to fall apart. I just know it. Like that's a form of like sort of self-defeatist anticipation of a certain circumstance. Right. That's going to make you anticipate a qualitative experience, which is like a feeling or the actual experience of what you actually experience inside your body, the sensations and the thoughts. You're going to anticipate having the experience of disappointment in your relationship. Yeah. And then that will both influence the choices you make and the way you talk to your partner, and also influence the types of situations that show up, like the way the cosmos is responding to you, and brings you opportunities for conflict. Like suddenly your car breaks down and you're on a date, and it brings up all the stuff that make you feel pessimistic, and then things sort of go that direction. Exactly. So when you anticipate a qualitative experience, you're always anticipating qualitative experiences in life. I mean, you make yourself a cup of coffee because you want to experience the feeling of. I love that. I got to pause you right there, because I feel like people feel like they just go throughout their day, but they don't realize, like, if they're not intentionally they do have these anticipatory experiences going on without them even knowing. Right. No matter what. And so, then for me, the most powerful thing is noticing what I'm already anticipating in my life, so that I can become more conscious of it. And I think the really powerful thing is when you see things in this way, you start to question, like, is each thing that happens to me helping me here in some way, helping me learn and grow? If I'm not looking to have everything make me successful, because clearly not everything's going to make me successful, what if the real goal is to accelerate my progress and up-level my skills? And then maybe everything that happens is in service to that. Mm-hmm. I hope people, I totally am all on board. I'm living in an apartment that was an exact qualitative experience last year. It was on the beach, and after reading your book, I was like, I want to smell the ocean and feel the tile and all my senses and all those type of things. And what's funny is I actually got that experience about 6 months ago, but I was living with my boss, so I didn't own it. And I was like, oh, that's funny. My first thought was, that's funny. I got the qualitative, but not in the way I expected. So now I was a little more clear that I want to own it. There was something else you were going to say. So rushing to the bus or the train, did you consciously think,
like, because for me, if I were in your shoes in that position, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to manifest this reality right now and have this great synchronistic event. So I want my anticipatory experience I want is like, wow, I can't believe I made the train. This is great. I'm going to get home on time. Did you like think of that, or did you just kind of push?
The real challenge, I think, with manifesting and thinking along those lines is that for me, when I am consciously thinking about what I want to manifest, I'm usually actually unconsciously not thinking that. I'm unconsciously thinking this is never going to work. I'm going to be late. So
Gotcha.
the mind is totally undermining us all the time. And the more we think about what we want to create and have a mental intention, the more we're probably triggering unconscious things about like life is just not going to work out for me. And so I think what flow is about is transcending the dynamics between
The
the
worry,
mind and
right?
the body, transcending the worry. So if you can get in, and that comes from having access to the body, you know, the physical experience that you have, not just the
Yes.
mental experience. So when I was running for the train, I wasn't thinking, I'm totally going to make this work, because that brings along with it this other thought, which is that this is never going to work.
The worry. So I guess I would follow up with saying, you also have to have the detachment. If I'm going in the spiritual realm, which is like you have the manifestation of, wow, it feels amazing to get this train, but if I don't make it, that's okay too. And I will think of that as an evolution of my consciousness to be patient or whatever it is.
Yeah. And so I love the phrase diving into life. You know, you're just diving into life. You're not placing conditions on life. You're not saying, okay, I'm going to run if this manifestation works. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to doubt it from now on.
Right.
You know, you're diving into life, and you're not trying to gather evidence in favor of your beliefs. But you're also following a practice. You're doing it because you know that it's the life you want to live. You're not doing it because you know that Sky wrote this book that says you're going to be more likely to catch the train. You're doing it because you want to live full-heartedly. And that means right now, just running for it.
I love that. So I'm going to sum it up because I like to try to hammer it home for people listening, which is you run for the train because you have this belief that you can kind of create your reality. But no matter what happens, you can look at it as a way to be more authentic with who you are. If a feeling comes up because you missed the train, you can use that. But either way, it's about being in that moment and being true to yourself, so that way you can be as open as possible to every moment as a way to, as a stepping stone to working on that muscle of authenticity and ultimately just live a happy life.
Yeah, beautiful. And then when it comes time to decide whether or not you want to switch jobs and go for your passion, or leave your apartment and go find a better apartment that you own, you're going to be willing to run for that too.
Wow, that's big, because I made the jump last year from corporate to following my passion, and a lot of it came from the gratitude. I was like, I'm very lucky I have a mom to fall back on if I need a place to stay, and I believe in my skills. And it's like, if I don't do it now, so it's like it was a gutsy move, but I also like it was after your book as well. It was like, I have this opportunity to really jump to another branch of possibilities, like a quantum leap, sort of like a giant leap to another branch. It's like that was such a moment of awe, like the fact that I could really take this jump, even if it's scary. I'm grateful I have a fallback plan, but some people do it with less. And the opportunity I have to jump on this branch is like saying, here's a jump right now. You can make it. The branch is right there. It swung my way for a second. Jump on it. And I did. And I'm really happy I did, because it's
I think
working
you
out.
brought up a good point, which is that, you know, the way we're talking, and from our experience, you know, I'm coming from a certain level of privilege where I do have a safety net, and I have some space in my life to notice synchronicities and be redirected. And people come from very different means, and some people don't have the same amount of freedom that I have to make choices like that. So I recommend that this approach, first of all, for folks who do have choice, you know, take that choice, like claim that choice. It is what you've been given. And if it feels scary to branch out and do something bold, then maybe you can draw on skills to be more bold in your life and take that opportunity that you have. And if you don't have the opportunity to make change like that because you don't have enough resources to do so, I think that synchronicity is still working in your favor. And so how can you use the responsiveness of this world that we're in to make choices in your attitude and whatever choices are available to you to create little bits of progress to lead the life in the direction you want to go.
Your community is exciting because when I think of these things, it really it inspires me because I'm like, I've had some experiences that are great and I'm excited for the new ones. But people listening, if they haven't tried it yet, they want proof and they want those things. And I just feel like sharing those stories are so helpful because they're so tangible. People might have had similar experiences. And in your community, like where you said with your live group, do people share stories? Like, tell me a little bit more about like what your goal is with the community.
Yeah, so the Living in Flow course is, and it's really gotten really lovely during this time of the pandemic where people are looking for the community that we have for inspiration and to create a sense of context or meaning for the experiences they're having, and seeing their life experiences as not just happening to them, but as context for growth and in the context of something bigger that they can change their life with. And so the course provides exercises and ideas that can help you get down to what are the things in the way of, what are the feelings that you're avoiding, that you're resisting, that are stopping you from getting into flow with your life? What are the ways in which you can see the goal? You don't even see the goalposts, but you can feel what the next step is to get towards the goalposts.
Yes.
And that's the synchronicity that you're looking for in your life, how to see more of that. And then in the group, we talk about the different ways that this shows up for people in their own life, and what are the things that they're going through and the ways that this is showing up on a day-to-day basis.
Wow. Yeah. I was blown away in your book when I was like, that you're trying to prove it with science, because I came from a very, very skeptical background with like logic, and there's no belief that it felt like too much of a detached feeling from like, this is my reality. This is something I believe. I didn't believe anything. Not before. I mean, leading up to your book, I started to believe things. I read some spiritual things, and it just started to make sense. And I realized while reading your book is that the things that made sense to me were very authentic to me. If I just got deep in my core, I had the same type of feelings.
Right.
And then reading your book, I was like, and then the way you say you're trying to do things that fill you with awe, that must be an insane experience to try to prove something like this. That when you push for synchronicity, it might make it happen through numbers and science. So I want your take on what that feels like to try to prove it, what your goals are, and also your new book. I want to hear a little bit about your new book.
It's an incredible experience of flow.
Yeah.
Balancing what I want to create on a daily basis, and I have a family, and taking care of that, my personal experience of satisfaction and growth, and flow is sort of a commitment to me to be everything that I can be, and not to limit that to, an image of who I should be for my parents, or who I should be for my friends, or who I should be for my daughter. So it's a wonderful experience. I feel so grateful to be able to do the research I do, and I've been doing academic research into the physics of space and time for many years now. I feel grateful to do that work. Like I said, it brings me a deep sense of awe when I understand something for the first time, and then I get to write about it, and that's not academic, in ways like the book, that Living in Flow,
Right.
And the new book, and that's very satisfying because I'm connecting with people on a personal level and get to hear other people's experiences and talk about what it's like to be human. So the new book is about the filters we have in our minds that we get conditioned with since we were kids, from experiences we have that may be traumatic, or just choices we made of how to respond to different people at different times, that become patterns. So we build up these patterns of response, which become our personalities. But what they do, these patterns, they constrain what we're able to really create, because they limit the number of ways that we can respond. When our boss criticizes us for something, we're sort of constrained to respond how we responded to our parents when we were criticized.
Right.
But when we begin to see these layers and get back to a sense of wholeness, like, who am I without these conditions? Then I have more choice to respond to my boss differently than the way I responded to my parents when I was criticized.
Right.
And that opens up all different possibilities. And I tie that into the physics of holograms and the the science of, of living in flow is about the way, I'm not going to say this very well right now, but the wholeness that exists in what I believe space and time is. Space and time is this that we live in. The physical world is a holistic space. It's not just you and I being separate across the country here, but there's a representation, a holographic representation in which we are part of a non-spatial, non-separate representation of reality. And that's what a hologram shows. A hologram is like a whole image that if you cut it in half, you still see the whole image in each half. So this idea of all in one and one in all is a central piece of this. And I try and show that through numerous examples in science, and then tie it into this idea that we as human beings are whole. And when we limit ourselves to a particular perspective of who we are, it's just like taking one perspective on that hologram, but then you can move your perspective and you can see all these other perspectives on the hologram.
Wow.
You can see all these other perspectives on who you are as well.
I love that, because that's what I loved about living in flow. It was like you have these beliefs that are kind of just feelings, and then you tie it into just statistics and probabilities. So it was just great. So I'm actually really excited. What's that book called?
Well, I'm not going to say because we haven't been able to land on it.
Not yet. All right. That's awesome.
It's in progress.
What you said about any date, by the way, for
It's
it?
due out next spring.
Okay, great. What you said about space and time, I have to ask, that'd probably be the last question, but you said your whole view. Tell me a little bit more about your whole view of space and time, because that's really fascinating. It's basically one entity. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So in a hologram, you have a spatial, it's like a photograph, right? But actually when you look at it, you see a three-dimensional image floating there. And when you tilt yourself, you see a different angle on the three-dimensional image. It's as if it's floating in space. And each part of that film doesn't actually, in a photograph, each part of the film captures a portion of the image you're seeing. Like a photograph of a face, part of it captures the eye, another part of it captures the mouth. But in a hologram of a face, if you tilt the image, the place where the eye was becomes the place where the mouth is. Mm-hmm. The place where the mouth is becomes the place where the ear was, or whatever. So the different parts of the face are moving through the film. What I'm getting at, and it's beautifully fun and interesting and abstract in some ways, but it points to this idea that the physical world we experience is actually a hologram. That things are appearing as like a virtual reality. So everything that happens to us, every physical circumstance that happens to us, it falls into place at that moment for us. Like we're experiencing a virtual reality that gets rendered for us right in that moment. Wow. And this takes us away from the assumption that the world is actually happening out there regardless of us, and we just have to go deal with it somehow.
Gotcha.
And it brings it into the realm of, okay, the world I'm about to experience hasn't actually been rendered yet, and it will be rendered when I get there. And then how can I influence that in some way?
Wow. So it's basically because like the hologram is there, but because your perspective changes, it changes what the hologram is. So you guys are interacting together because the hologram has you observing it. And your observation changes based on your angle of perspective, which is basically like your way you go about your life.
Yeah. And if you can get to the perspective that the world you're about to interact with doesn't actually exist yet in some sense.
Do you know it's just really hitting into the observer effect.
Yes, it's saying, look, this is what the observer effect is really pointing at. And there's a lot of work that has to be done, which is part of what I try and do to show that effect, which is well understood in a sense at the quantum microscopic level with electrons in a lab.
That's the most wild thing.
That applies more generally, and that's part of the work that I'm trying to do.
That's what fills me with awe and wonder, because it's just, I don't know how much time you have, but like the quantum theory and the observer effect is like we see it in video games today already, and they're getting better. And it just, in my eyes, it's, if you extrapolate into the future, those video games are going to get better and better.
So what do you mean you see them in video games already?
the observer effect. Like they use that technology. Like for example, a game, they have the character running around the map and it's actually not rendered because it's just more efficient for the processing of the video game.
Right. Right.
So it's just so strange to me that it seems the basis of our own reality is the same as that we're creating.
Right. So I wrote a passage in the book that I think you might be referring to about optimistic synchronization, which is a method of rendering video games, virtual worlds, where if you don't have enough processing power to synchronize your world completely with somebody else's across the planet, then the computer infers what the other person's doing, so it can render it for you. And what's important in this model is that the world you're experiencing is not some objective world out there on the server, in the middle of, I don't know, Google's headquarters or something like that. It's a world that's being rendered on your laptop right in front of you.
Yeah.
And then the other person's world, in Japan, let's say they're playing from Japan, their laptop is rendering their world for them. But those two worlds are supposed to be the same world. So they have to synchronize in the same way that your world and my world are rendered for, mine is rendered for me in front of my eyes, and yours is rendered for you in front of your eyes.
Wait, so are we talking about synchronicities right now too? Like that's the core of a synchronicity as well, is like when two worlds kind of cross paths?
Yeah, so our worlds are trying to synchronize themselves with each other to make sure that whatever I'm experiencing is consistent with what you're experiencing when we meet up here.
Right.
And a synchronicity, this is where synchronicity doesn't stand alone. It needs the concept of flow, because if I have the synchronicity of hearing from you that you want to do a podcast, maybe that's a synchronicity for me because I was just looking to, do another podcast or something like that.
Right.
And then you reach out or we connect somehow, and then this comes up. And it serves both of us. And so a synchronicity on one hand is always relative to the person. So I have a synchronicity relative to me. It's meaningful to me. And I can't tell you what's meaningful to you. You have to decide that for yourself. And yet flow is the way in which our lives get woven together in a way that's ultimately beneficial to the highest degree for everybody. So flow is the way our lives all rise together. And that happens with these synchronicities, which are miraculously like the best possible outcome for me and the best possible relationship for all of us.
Wow. That's getting so deep, but that's what I think about all the time is like that. It's just insane to me that there's so many similarities between all these things, and and the fact that there's math behind it as well is just, to me, it's undeniable. But
and the key thing to come back to is that's all possible because the world that we take for granted as objectively existing outside of our walls is actually waiting to be rendered based upon the choices we make.
Woo!
And therefore, things can fall into place in a way that works for me really well and serves the community, the people that I'm with. But I have to be able and willing to see it clearly. And that means understanding what I'm feeling, understanding my reactions, the ways in which I get in my own way by, I can't tell you the number of times someone will say to me, like my wife says to me, I want to do this. And I'm like, no, we shouldn't do that. And then I realized later, that's exactly what we should have done. I just had to get through my resistance and see what is it that's making me say no to get to yes.
That is amazing. That's so cool. I've never heard that or never learned that in any way of like thinking of like the world relative to other people like that. That's really, really cool.
So synchronicity is relative to us, and it's in a way it's sort of self-focused, and yet it's the most community supportive thing we can do to really get into alignment with the synchronicities in our life, because we become more aligned with other people as well.
And I love that. And I think it goes to the point of when you were saying, like in your new book, you're saying everything's kind of connected in one thing. If we think in that way and we are authentic to ourselves, we're basically raising, I go with vibration, because like we all have this energy producing. If we do that and we are on our path can help other people get onto their path, and it's just everybody's kind of going up. I don't know to where, but it's like if you think that everybody's connected in that way, you raising up, you have a someone put it that way of you have a much greater responsibility than just yourself when you think that way as well.
Yeah. And I would say the summary of my message in Flow is that we all want to change the world and make the world a better place in some way, but we don't necessarily need to do it somebody else's way. We don't need to go out there and, get a different job or, protest on the street or boycott certain products or fight for this and that in an explicit way. The most effective catalytic thing we can do is dive into our life wholeheartedly and go for the things that we really want to create in the world. And that might be starting a business. It might be having a really deep relationship. It might be having kids. It might be going into politics. It might be becoming an athlete. Just whatever it is that's you. If you can be fully you, yep. Have the courage, and it's really take a lot of courage to be fully what you want to be in the world. Mm-hmm. That is the world I envision, where we're each changing our entire community by being more and more authentic and more up-leveling our own skills.
Just beautiful. And it's funny because it's like all you have to do with all the basis of everything is just be yourself, yet it's the hardest thing. Mm-hmm. It's so funny.
And it just adds to this sense of flow. And practically what that means is that the conflicts that we tend to create every day with the choices we make start to dissipate, because the choices we make are more in alignment with the circumstances. And there's less and less of these sort of what I would call bad choices, or choices that sort of cause frustration and difficulty down the road.
Right. Wow. Whew, that's really great, dude. I think I don't want to take any more of your time. I really, really appreciate it. That was great. I would love to have you back on, especially when the new book comes out, but anything new, I would love to pick your brain on. That was an amazing conversation, man.
Well, people can find my course at the letter uthrivehere.com/livinginflow. And I've got a new album that's coming out right now. I'm dropping a single every couple of weeks right now at skynelson.com. And that is so awesome. Doing online Facebook Lives with lessons and stuff from Living in Flow. So find me on Facebook, is where I spend a lot of time. Instagram. Really cool, man. And I'll drop the links, and I'll put these all in the description of the podcast, wherever you're listening to this. So check it out, man. That's awesome. Thanks you so much, man. It was really great to meet you. Yeah, great to talk we'll talk soon. Yeah, I'm glad we finally got around to it. All right, man. Well, take it easy, brother. All right, bye. So proud to be in my species. Yeah, you are the one. We are the one. We are the same thing. Showing the love. Spreading the love. That's what we made with. This is your life. This is your life. Gotta create it. We are alive. We are alive. This is amazing.